Home run. Let's get this started in a second. Steve, you ready, man? Home run. Let's get this going. So, hey, I'm pumped to bring on our guest, Steve Taylor. He's an enlisted Army vet who served from 83 to 87, who then turned those lessons into a powerhouse career in franchising and business coaching. After years of corporate sales, marketing, and ops, including stints at tech firms and franchise brands, he founded the franchise consulting company to guide folks, especially transitioning vets, into owning businesses that fit their skills and lifestyle. He's all about matching military discipline with entrepreneurial fire, helping vets snag low risk franchises that build wealth and freedom. And big shout out to his free book, Franchising 101, which breaks down the basics for anyone dipping toes into ownership, no strings attached. His stories of vets crushing it in business, coaching, and beyond are straight fire for anyone navigating life after uniform. Steve, glad you're here. Let's dive into it. I managed to get everything there. It's you got a kind of a long span, so it's a little tough.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much, Ernie. I hate to start out with a correction.
Oh,
I'm not sure how you got that. I was Army enlisted in the 80s. I was
oh no, that was
actually,
supposed to be 90s, right?
try again.
Oh,
I'm not going to leave you hang out to dry. I actually went to the Naval Academy from 83 to 87, and then I was commissioned into the
oh,
Navy in 87. Um, I don't mind the enlisted part, but you threatening me with army background is it's pretty vicious.
yeah,
Um,
sorry. I was when I was working on stuff, I might have mixed one up there with another person I was working on. So my apologies. No, you got through the cat.
no,
Hey, did you ever get the coin in the at the academy? Did you get there to get the coin in the quiver on the statue?
I'm no.
No.
um, oh, I see what you mean. No, you kind of pick and choose the traditions you believe in or the superstitions. Um, there are other ones, but that I think I've never been a 3-point shooter. So
Not your thing. Like save the money.
no,
Hey,
but
so hey, after you got out of the Navy, so what was the moment or feeling that told you it was time to transition out and do something new?
sure. I did a bunch of stuff. I mean, I had a kind of interesting career out of the Navy, high tech, did a bunch of project management type roles, operations, like you said, sales. I enjoyed a lot of it, but a lot of it I didn't enjoy, and I always felt like the round peg in the square hole. Um, I mean, it kind of this might be a little brutal for this early in the morning. It's barely 8 o'clock here where I am, but I'd done really well on a project. Not to get into details, but my VP invited me in. I was expecting a bonus. I was handed a set of walking papers, and I started looking around and I just ran into the same things. I just couldn't envision dealing with that again. And so I started looking at businesses. The ones I could afford tended to be, Joe's Shoe Shine or, Frank's hair cutting, that type thing. And somehow I stumbled, I was doing research and I was like, hey, what's this franchise thing? I started digging into it. And as they say, the rest is history. What was that, 17 years ago? I bought a business, um, had a great run with it. I thought I was going to retire with it, frankly. And about 5, 6 years ago, a friend of mine, actually a guy who sold me that business, said, hey, I'm starting a new business. Do you want to come on as a partner? I'm like, well, what is it? And he says, franchise consulting. I was, what's that? Long, again, long story medium. The It turned out the things I really enjoyed about running my business were the same reasons I joined the Navy, which was making a difference, changing people's lives. And as a business owner, you don't realize all the lives you get to change and touch, and just random things sometimes. Or I prefer not to think random, but again, I had impact on people's lives. I've had people, um, they come back, they'll do, I owned the business was a flooring contract and retail. So That was installing flooring, carpet, hardwood, that sort of thing. I had more than one of my employees come back and say, you know what, you saved my house. You know what, you fed my family. You took a risk on me. And I did take risks on people. Not all of them were good risks, or not of all of them panned out. But that's what I was thinking a long time ago when I was joining the Navy. Like, hey, I can really do some things, and and that really came to fruition as a business owner.
I, it sounds like you're still using a lot of those Navy and Academy lessons in your life now and carrying over into business. Would that be true?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say Navy Academy. I would say anybody with a veteran background
Hmm.
picks up these things just by osmosis, right? Maybe that's,
Yeah.
they just absorb. You get trained. That training gets reinforced by activities and stress and practice and that type of thing. And then as a leader, you get that experience at almost every level in the military once you graduate boot camp or Naval Academy, whatever it is. So those are all things, those are soft skills. It's a great fit for veterans and for franchises, um, because um, they're not looking for people with technical skills. I haven't, I can't tell you how many times, well, they're not looking for a shooter, or, I kick down doors, or I fix jet engines, or, that type of thing. What franchise do you have with that? Honestly, with franchises, with very, very few exceptions, they're looking with people with those soft skills, you know, how to put a big grin on your face and saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am. How to how to lead a team, how to approach something from um, the perspective of win-win. Not everyone does that, um, and that's something I certainly saw a lot of in the Navy, and I think probably everybody sees in the military. Just that we're all in this together mentality. You can call it seeing through the fog of war, but I would say focusing on the objective, right? And seeing it through to completion. Those are the things that really set apart a business owner. And I think a lot of us with the military background has have that perspective.
Well, it's funny you say, have to put a smile on your face. I mean, think about how many times, in our military careers, we had to eat a big turd sandwich and acted like we liked it. I imagine, franchises, there's some similarities there. Like, yes, that's fantastic, sir. I'll do that. And it sucks. I mean, what do you think the best and worst parts of being in a franchise business?
I'm smiling because that's the exact words I was using. I wasn't thinking turd. I was thinking something else, but
Yeah, I was trying to keep
very
it somewhere on
similar,
bar.
very similar to that. You know what? I don't see that perspective so much as I see keeping the eye on the ball, and sometimes that's doing hard things or things you don't expect, and you know what? I'd even take a step back. I would say it's a whole lot easier to swallow hard when you know it's your business, and you you have that perspective, right? Oh gee, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this, but you know what? My reputation's important because it's tied almost directly to my paycheck, and so I pretty quickly transitioned away from thinking of it as swallowing a turd sandwich and towards you know, being effective, having a good reputation, those type things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you're changing your perspective on it, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at, being optimistic or pessimistic, if you try to stick with the optimism, you have a much better chance of pressing forward than the other side of that coin.
yeah. You,
I mean,
the other thing I was gonna say, I'm gonna go off on a limb a little bit of a rabbit hole, but one of the critical things I learned is you don't want to make your problems other people's problems. People come to you to solve their
mhm.
problem, not add to them. And um, you could have a hard morning or whatever, and I'm a pretty transparent guy, and someone asked me, um, hey, how's it going? Um, I learned pretty quickly they don't want to hear how it's going. They want to move forward to what things are important to them. And I guess that might be an example where sometimes you just gotta, you may have stubbed your toe, burned your throat with some hot coffee, but it's going great. Yeah,
Yep.
hey, tell me about your issue here.
Yeah. Yeah. My house is on fire and I'm at yours fixing the plumbing, but everything's fantastic. Thank you, sir. Can you kind of walk us through how you went from corporate sales and marketing to realizing, that the franchise thing was your career with the career bridge?
So first off, you did it again, and
I did?
I'm gonna slap you in the
Yeah,
face.
sorry, my research sucks, so fix me.
How dare you say I was in marketing? No, that's I'm teasing. The How did I make the transition? So I think the big picture answer is I had a very supportive father and wife. I'd been
Mm.
kind of looking at businesses, and I had a kind of idea what might be interesting, and there was some, so I've been looking at that, and frankly, for me, I mean, that combined with kind of a slap in the face, yeah, by my company, that I love the people at. I it was a classic. I was doing very well there, and the numbers didn't pan out. It was very stark to me. They needed to cut 35% of their people, and um, the bigger story was I had accomplished my project before anyone else. It was a big global project, and my region was the biggest part of it. And I was the only one who had completed on time, under budget, and all that. And the other two people were still flailing, and they had to let me go because the other two hadn't completed what their objectives were. Um, so that really provided a lot of motivation for me. So that was a big thing. I worked with someone like me who kind of walked me through the different options, what I was interested in. Um, I remember that was 17 years ago, but that's part of what motivates me today. I don't think they did me a great service.
No.
well, I should say, I think they could have done a lot better job. And so that kind of motivated me. Again, when I first was approached about this business, and actually Bravo Zulu is my own business, and we work with a company called Franchise Consulting Company, which um, uh, is kind of the mothership, for want of a better word. But when I went through all that, I had someone that kind of guided me, gave me resources, gave me things to read, look at, that sort of thing. And so by the time I was ready to pull the trigger, I felt fairly well educated about the whole franchise world. Um, Now, I've learned a lot more in the last 17 years, and there's a lot more I think is important that candidates need to consider. Um, but that was kind of the guiding force behind what I did.
Yeah. So on the early days of the business, what do you think were the biggest shocks or adjustments from moving from employer to entrepreneur?
Um, that's 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 pretty easy. I think it was about 16 months in when I realized no one cared about my business as much as I did. And I mean, nobody. And I had anticipated the franchise to provide a lot more assistance than they did. And I should say a lot more effective advice, that sort of thing. I was kind of disappointed. And again, that kind of motivates me now, what I do. is I still work with that company. Su- Surprisingly or not surprisingly, they don't get any referrals from me.
Weird.
Part of it is, whatever. But I guess getting back to your question is just just realizing, having that realization, just emotionally, that you know what, Steve, you gotta instead of taking advice from these people, you gotta validate, you gotta make that certain that's the right thing to do. And I started, that was a sea change for me, no pun intended. That was a huge change for me. But when I made that, things started happening. And uh, if I hadn't come to that realization, I probably wouldn't be in business today.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because you're right. The only place that cares about your business as much as you is the bank, and it's not the
Nope.
same kind of care.
I
It's not the
wouldn't
same
even
kind
say
of.
that. I don't. I mean, I had a good friend. My banker's a good friend. He didn't care as much. He, it was, yeah. That's a whole, you know. Anyway, sorry. I don't mean to
No, I
dispute
get it.
you, but I've got strong opinions about this.
No, I mean you've been doing it, so I'm trying to figure it out. So for the
Yeah.
folks listening who are still in there, kind of, what's next? I mean, what do you think the first couple of moves that you made actually move the needle towards like building real wealth?
Um, I think sales. Again, this is kind of going back to our franchise, but I think a lot of franchisors go through this. They'll offer sales assistance um, to franchisees, and it may be a system, it might be a certain coach, it might be all these things, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was a podcast or something, and I heard something, it was something like this, and it was like, the key to sales is sincerity, right? And I really dwelled on that for a while, and it really challenged me to look inwards. Who was I? Um, who did, what kind of service was I trying to develop? All these things, and then how do I live those values? How do I live that in a way that's completely transparent to the customer? So, in a practical sense, I'll tell you, I don't. There's a sales system run by a guy named Rodney Webb, and it was everything I don't like about sales. But that was the whole thing about Rodney, right? Or the franchise I owned. And that was how we were doing sales. And because it worked in all these other businesses. Uh, but it wasn't in my world, it wasn't authentic. And in my thinking, it was authentic. So I rejected that and I started going out on my own. And like, just being honest up front, contractors don't necessarily have a great name. I was like, yeah, you're right. If a customer would say that, I'd say, yeah, you're absolutely right. You should check twice. So I'm an open book, and this is a price. This is what I need to stay in business and make a profit. And that's great. If you can find something better done, or better value, go for it. Um, and I just started doing sales like that. Maybe I wasn't that brutally transparent, but I started selling and building those relationships, which at the end of the day are what allow your business to be profitable in the long term.
One of the things I found too is on the sales or even recruiting side, if you believe in your product, truly believe in it, it makes it a lot easier to sell because you're willing to stand behind it and the people can see that. The people who are smart enough to be spending that much money can see it. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, and that's a great comment. I um, I would put it like this, or what I do now is very much I'm selling myself, and I think I really at the end of the day I can believe in myself because I know exactly what I'm saying. I understand that I'm not going to let myself down. I provide a great product, all those things. So it becomes easier to sell. When I had the flooring company, for example, it's a little more difficult, right? You have 100 suppliers, you know what they're telling you and selling you. Then it becomes a little more difficult, right? You've got a big staff, it becomes that part of it becomes a little more difficult, right? But um, definitely, if you don't believe in the product, I wouldn't suggest to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're an employee or anything. If you can't get behind what you're doing, that's kind of a hard road to hoe, at least for me.
No, I totally agree because been in the position where, somebody's pushing me to make it happen. I was like, it's not the right fit. I'm not going to do it because that's going to come back and bite you in the neck later because people will tell their friends about a good thing, like two or three friends, but a bad thing, they're going to tell everybody they meet.
Yeah,
Be a
yeah.
stranger in the supermarket. Let me tell you about this guy. It's just
You,
nature. So give us the elevator
I,
pitch. Go ahead.
I was just gonna just I've been thinking about a lot. I just went through this whole process of rebranding my company, and part of that process was being interviewed at length, and then the person I had hired to do that put up what they call a mood board, and it's like all the words and the phrases and pictures and all that, and it were things like sincerity. I don't have any, sincerity, credibility, technical proficiency, all these things I believed in, thrown back in my face, and it was a great exercise. So, sorry. So, elevator pitch. So, what I do is I work with people that are interested in learning more about business ownership. Um, my objective in this process is to get people to a point of confidence. And by confidence, I mean, is this right for me today? Is it never going to be right to me for me, or maybe next year, something like that? That's where I try and get to people, um, or where I try to get people to, um, because it's not for everybody. But there are a lot of people that think about, well, what about going into business? That type of thing. I like it that way because um, I can win a whole lot more often than selling a product, right? Oh, you didn't buy, it was an L for me, that type of thing. I want to be a winner.
Mhm.
Also, I think ethically or just from an approach, I think people um, see through me anyways. I'm not like by nature, I'm not a hard sales guy. I'm I'm about finding out what people need and what people want, and then go seeing if I can find it. I probably, of 10 people I talk every week, um, maybe two, maybe three decide, well, let's dig deeper. And but the rest of them, you know what? I've helped them out because they figured out, hey, I don't, this isn't for me, or what I really need is a job. And it's a bonus if I can refer them on. And that's honestly how I look at it. At the end of the month or the end of the year, um, I've consistently made money, um, and I'm not starving. If you can't tell, I'm not. uh, uh, yeah, and I'm very pleased with what I'm doing. I sleep very well at night, um, knowing I've helped people and I've done my best.
So with that helping people, 'cause I did recruiting for a long time, and something you said there kind of hit me is like I, send some people off. It's not the right thing. I used to do the same thing in recruiting. I'd have a kid come in and say like, "Hey, I want to do this, this, and this." Like, "Hey, you're talking to the wrong guy. I want to join now." Blah blah. I was like, "Hey, I'll sign you up. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the right fit." And then later on, I had that same kid referring people to me left and right because, hey, this guy didn't BS me. He was honest. And,
Yeah,
I was just like that first time, I was like, hey, I see what you want. I can't do it. And I wasn't expecting that. It was a learning curve, kind of a thing. So, I mean, day to day, how do you match somebody like a transitioning vet's skill set and their personality to the right franchise brand?
Sure. So let me just I'll pull you all through a nominal timeline. Typically, first contact may spend 15 minutes, maybe a half hour on the phone. I describe the process in more detail. I answer any initial questions. Going back to your statement, I mean, I work when I do work with recruiters, and I have placed recruiters. They can pretty much finish my sentences. When we start talking, because it's very, very similar role. It's just our clientele's different, and that type thing. But then I give them some homework. There are a couple surveys. One's kind of like a Myers-Briggs, but it's optimized for business ownership. One's more of a general, where do you live? Where do you want to live? What do you like? What don't you like? What's your address? Um, More of an intake form. And there's some very basic financial information. Um, Once I get that back, um, we have a 45-minute or an hour Zoom call. And, frankly, it's a chance for me to ask some questions and walk you through a little bit of a script. It's not awful. But the most important thing is for me to get to know who you are and maybe uncover some things about you. I just, I got 15 minutes into one of those conversations, and I let the guy go. I said, you know what? You're not, he was talking, I shouldn't say this, but you don't know him. But he was talking about his wife was taking him to court and accusing him of stuff. And, I mean, that was so wrong on so many. And, of course, none of it's true and all this. I'm like, finally, I just said, dude, you got a lot going on in your life that you need to resolve. And I'd love to help you, but I can't do that now. And
Mhm.
when you're settled down and, well, I need money. Well, okay, this isn't the thing for you, right? But but we go through that. Hopefully, none of you are being dragged into court by an ex-spouse or something like that. We go through that. You have the opportunity during that time. It's designed to be very relaxed, so you can ask questions. We can have a conversation. That's the most important thing. And then from that, I take all your input, I document everything, I share everything with you. I write a 4 or 5 page report. What are your goals and objectives? What are you trying to achieve? What's special about you? That type thing. Um, I coach my clients at that point to read that very carefully because that reflects my understanding of the situation, right? But also by reading it, you start embedding that in your head, right? You start thinking, oh, those are my goals and objectives. And if they're not your goals and objectives, you better darn well tell me because I'm going to bat for you at that point. Um, I'm going out to different vendors I know. I contractually represent about 330 different companies actively looking for owners. And sometimes I've got to kind of twist some arms. Hey, this is a great guy. He may not have the best or $100,000 in the bank, but look, he just came out of the army. Um, I think he has a lot of experience in this area. He's staying in the reserve, so he's going to have a little bit of an income. You might want to talk to him, that type thing. But in that time, usually it's between 3 days and a week. Um, I develop a list, and then the next meeting I present ideas, and again, nominally 6 ideas. And if you say, "Hey, Steve, this is great. I've always wanted to do the feline nail clinic thing," then we go ahead and I put you in a position where you can learn a whole lot more about the businesses you're interested in. Not the ones, not the ones that you're not interested in, but focus in on the 2 or 3 that I've shown you that make sense to you. And I make the case for why I think they're important, frankly. This is what you're going to be doing. Um, this is the type business, this is the, type people you'd employ or not employ. This is why I like it. And, you know, um, at that point, I make the introductions to the companies, so you're not wasting your time talking to a lot of people that probably aren't a good fit for you. I make introductions to like finance groups or attorneys or anybody you need to, and then at that point, I become more of a coach, um, even more of a coach or a sounding board, and I guide you through the process. Frankly, I get a lot of questions about, well, how do I ask this or how do I get that? Or, because people are already starting to look at these businesses as, well, I could be in a business relationship in these companies, right? And at that point, people start, well, I don't want to look stupid or I don't want to step on toes or that type of thing. And I think that's where I can be really helpful. Um, so ultimately, you're going to make a decision based on what you've learned, not what I've told you. Um, I'm the coach. I'm the guy helping you get to the ball field. I'm not the one going up to bat. I'm not facing a pitcher throwing 100-mile-an-hour pitches. I'm not going to be running the bags or anything like that. I'm the coach, and I want to put you in a position to be a winner. And that's how I help people make that transition.
Awesome. So from your corporate and franchise experience, what are the non-negotiables you drill into every client before they sign anything?
I mean, first and foremost, um, talk to an attorney, and I'll refer attorneys. Maybe that's not first or foremost. Do you like these people? I mean, I provide, taking a step back, I provide, a 5-page paper that describes exactly what you should be looking for. For example, I don't work with people that don't facilitate conversations between my clients and current franchisees. Current franchisees don't have any objective other than they want good co-franchisees that aren't going to ruin the brand. If they're promoting ABC company in Norfolk, they don't want a guy in Charleston, effing up the brand. That's their only objective. They're going to be completely honest. I hate to say this, but franchisors, especially the development people are compensated on how much they sell. And it's not that they're not good and honest people. They have a little different motivation, right?
Mhm.
So I think talking to other franchisees, validating everything with franchisees, making sure that the disclosures match what you're hearing. Simple questions, I call it, would I want to sit down with this guy for a beer? Cup of coffee. Um, you know, because those things matter. You're looking to go into a business relationship. Well, that's both business and a relationship. And if you don't like the person, um, I
Yeah.
that's I only work with people I like, and that's kind of something I learned when I was in the military. When I didn't have it select, I didn't get to choose who my boss was, and I only working for myself, I get to choose exactly who I work with and who I don't work, and that's
That is
that's very important
nice.
to me.
Yeah, 'cause we've all had good and bad bosses, that's for sure. Can you drop a quick, veteran success story, dude who went from combat boots to multiple franchises?
Um, Boy, I'm trying to think of you know I'll tell you kind of a maybe this is a funny or a surprising story to me. I met a guy online on LinkedIn, and he was a retired senior chief. That's E8, and he was from part of California that I'm from originally, and very very different guy to me, and but super nice, super sweet, and just easy guy to talk to, and lived in kind of a unique area. Um, Long story short, he and his partner selected a senior care um, concept. Um, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's called Seniors Helping Seniors. But essentially, they contract with seniors to provide services to seniors that need help with non-medical care. So that could be, help getting to appointments, remembering to take medications, light housework, that sort of thing. Uh, but I think, and he was, I mean, unfortunately, it was in California, and California makes it kind of challenging at times to do business. I'm choosing my words carefully because they're probably listening to my phone calls right now. But uh, so the timeline was a little extended, but ultimately he came to a decision very carefully, and I think it was the perfect franchise for him and his partner. Great guys. His partner was an Air Force veteran. They didn't tell me that until the very end. I think they thought I was going to harass him or something, and they were probably right. But just great guys to work with, and they're well on their way. Um, Trying to remember. I mean, there's another guy. I mean, very different, very successful. Um, he'd been a surface warfare officer and been very successful. One of the few people I know with a PhD in business, and he was
Ooh.
general manager of a defense contractor. Very different than my typical client. Um, but he just texted me Happy Thanksgiving, so he's kind of top of my mind. But he did the same thing, senior care. He got kind of a raw deal, and it was kind of I'd been talking to him for 3 years, and he came back around. So um, and everything in between. I mean, certainly there's another guy who had what was he was an aviation machinist mate. Um, it was a few years ago, and he got out after a single enlistment, and he went into sales, um, inside sales, did a lot of inside sales, and that sort of thing. But he ultimately he purchased a cost reduction franchise. So basically, he goes into companies and sells a service. He actually doesn't sell a service. He requests to take a share of any savings he can identify with the
Hmm.
company. So it was very important that he was comfortable talking to people. But then this franchise, they have a back office that audits everything. So all he's doing is he's making the pitch, and then he's presenting the results. And yeah, so was that good?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I just want to
these
give you some real
success
examples.
stories. That's what it's about. But can you talk to me about your book, Franchising 101? What made you decide to give it away and make it available to anybody?
Sure. So this is a book. It's kind of the congealed knowledge or the concentrated knowledge I've gained over the last 17 years. Um, it's not exceptionally long, and actually, I tested. So I have this brand new website, right? And one of the key features is you can download the book, um, and the link's broken right now. Yay technology! So let me just say up front, if you're interested, or I could send a link to everybody. It's not a big deal. Um, yeah, it's kind of a concentrated uh, focus on the things I think are important. It's not a long read. Actually, I send it to all my clients because I want them to read certain parts of it before we meet. Maybe not not before our first meeting, but second and third meeting there. I mean, I want you to read big chunks of it, and I may repeat a lot of it, but if you're like me, it bears. I learn more when I look at things in several different ways. You know, verbally, um, you know, eyes, you know, that type thing. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information. If you're interested in this at all, I would say first talk to me. I can you know dispel in 15 minutes more than you could on your own figure out in a year. I don't know. Yeah, I'm
You've been doing it a
happy to
long
do
time.
that. Yeah, you could spend a lot of time. There's a lot of information on the internet, and some of it's right, you know. And
That sounds like a Abraham Lincoln quote to me.
I'm almost sure I'm channeling my inner Lincoln on that. Internet, you know, what doesn't say Lincoln like internet, but yeah.
So are there any like big like oh crap things that, in the book that saves people when they're first looking at franchises and you're like, hey, you need to know ABC, that kind of a smack in the
Yeah,
face.
yeah, I think there's a lot of little lessons, or I tried to write a lot of little lessons in there. I would say, you know, sometimes people say, well, why do people not buy franchises? And I think about that a lot, right? You know, if someone goes away, you know, why did they really go away? And and you know, sometimes it's random things. Like I have a client who just was in a car crash maybe a month ago, and he was significantly injured. I mean, you can't prevent that, but then what what I don't like to see is people lose faith in themselves. Like they just get overwhelmed. They think, "Oh, I can't do this," and you look at their background. You know, the guy led a squad in Afghanistan, you know, for a year, and you're telling me this is too hard for you, or um, I could, there's no. I always say. The great thing about my military experience is not any particular skill I learned, but what I learned about myself and what I can truly accomplish. So when I see someone drop out, right, for no good reason, and I'm gonna just put it, that's a little distressing. I don't like to see that, and usually those people go non-communicative, and they're just like, I'm done, and they don't want to talk about it. And it's like, dude, I'm here. You know, I'm not going to talk you into anything you don't want to do, but let's go through this. Why are you, no longer interested? You know,
Yeah, some people just get cold feet before they even get to the church, much less the altar.
right.
And the real talk. So vet getting out now, one of these folks, what's the very first thing they need to invest their time in to figure out if they want to get into a franchise or not? Is there any like common foundation where you say, hey, you need to ask yourself this question, answer it honestly?
Um, that's a good question. I'm trying to think, you know, for me, I'm just going to make this very self-centered,
Yeah.
and I think it's in a good way. Call me. Um, in 15 minutes, I'm gonna ask you some questions, and you're gonna ask me some questions, and I think in 15 minutes I can tell you um, what's possible and what's not. Um, I'll say another thing. People, you know, money is an issue, and it's a real issue.
Mhm.
Um, if you I'm working with one guy right now. All he wants to do, he came from an entrepreneurial family. He's getting a job when he gets out of the Navy, and um, he wants to do something on the side. Doesn't have a lot of money, but he's absolutely focused on finding a business, right? Um, that's great. Um, but most people don't have that sense of direction, if you will. Um, so I would say, I mean, going back to your question, call me. Set up a meeting. I mean, that's the easiest, and um, I'll answer all your questions.
Cool. Could you share some of the franchises do you think that are good for vets? You know, some of the ones that you represent that are like typically good for vets when they're in this position right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go off on a flyer and just assume people don't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
I'm actually part owner of a franchise that we're waiving franchise fees for veterans, and that's a huge amount of of the cost, right? So it's a small service brand. We've got 10 franchises right now, and we're just coming, what it is installing TVs in homes and businesses. That's a great one. I don't know of any other brand that would be easier to get involved with as a veteran. Um, Kind of ironic thing, I was approached to be a partner in that business because I had a great outreach in veterans, and that's what they wanted to focus on. And I was really interested because this would allow someone, an E4, E5 with one or two enlistments to. Our first five franchisees were an average of 5.5s, are all colonels and Navy captains and commanders and lieutenant colonels. We're getting enlisted folks, and they're doing great. Our former enlisted folks, but that's a great one. Small service brands where there's not a brick and mortar, those are gonna be less of a an investment up front. I think there are a bunch. Um, and there are also ones, so if you start a business and you got to employ people, there's a significant amount of working capital you need to have on hand, right? To cover the difference between when you get income and or when you spend something and when you get that income, right? So that's called working capital. When you're the only employee, guess what? Number one, your employee is super motivated. Number two, your working capital requirements go down, and then overall investment goes down. So there are a lot of service level ones. You may not want to spend your life in a van. Frankly, I don't want to hire people that want to spend their lives in a van. I want to work with people that are interested in building something that's sustainable and that meets your needs, meets your family's needs handsomely, that type of thing. So,
So anything else you'd kind of like to share since you're here before I do any other questions or any thoughts, comments, or ideas?
no, I mean, this is a great time. This is an inflection point in your careers, leaving the military. Take advantage, look at a bunch of stuff, interview with companies. Um, you know, it's not a bad option to go work for a company for 4 years and then start a business, or
Mhm.
at least start the conversation with me. I have a newsletter. Um, but really the world is your oyster, and if you're like me and really want to take control, I really significantly encourage you to look into business ownership. I think it's a great option for a lot of people.
That's been great. Hey, thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate you coming out representing, your business, Bravo Zulu Partners, as a former Navy guy, back in the day. And I'll go figure out where I made that mistake. So I very much appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. And